The Chicago Education Watch with Dr. Barnett.
Hello and welcome to Chicago Education Watch. I'm Dr. Marlo Barnett. Thank you for joining me today. Today's episode is a special edition. Instead of reviewing the CPS board meeting, we're taking a closer look at Chicago's Elected Board of Education process. Before we begin, I want to make two disclosures. In the interest of transparency, first, I am currently a candidate for the Chicago Board of Education, and the election board has made a final decision to remove me from the ballot. But we will get into that at some of that in this episode. Second, I serve on the Education Committee of the Coalition of African American Leaders, also known as COLE. Because I am a candidate, I chose to recuse myself from a lot of the conversations in the committee when this was specifically discussing the this newly elected school board process and the candidates. I believe transparency matters. As always, the purpose of Chicago Education Watch is not to tell you what to think. It is to explain the process, provide information for you, and encourage you in the community participation. This isn't just my voice, it's your voice too. Throughout today's episode, I'll ask several questions as always, and I hope you'll share your thoughts in the comments below. So now let's begin. So last Saturday, I attended a community event hosted by the Coalition of African American Leaders, led by Mr. Wimberly. Our special guest was Mr. Sean Harden, president of the current school board. Mr. Harden has announced that he will not seek election to the new board. He explained that one of his goals has been to help guide the transition from an appointed board to Chicago's first fully elected Board of Education. Chicago's transition to a fully elected board follows the 2024 election, when only some seats were elected and others remained mayoral appointed. The 2026 election is the first in which all seats are elected. During the discussion, he shared several ideas that I thought were worth considering. One was that companies doing business with the Chicago Public Schools should not be making large campaign contributions to candidates for the elected board. He also talked about qualities communities should look for when evaluating candidates. He mentioned effective communication, the ability to collaborate, and understanding of schools' finance and budgets, and willingness to govern and understanding the difference between governing and managing. I appreciated hearing his perspective, but I asked a different type of question. If those are the qualities we want in a board and board members, should Illinois consider establishing minimum qualifications or training requirements for future candidates? Mr. Harden agreed that the transition to an elected board has revealed lessons that policymakers may want to evaluate moving forward. That conversation inspired today's episode, because today isn't about one candidate, it's about understanding the process. If we are better able to understand the process, then our voting decisions will become much easier and we are more knowledgeable. So how can a community person or just anyone get on a ballot? Many voters only see candidates when they appear on the ballot in an election. And in this case, our election is November 3rd. But there is a long process before any name ever appears on that ballot. So let's walk through it together. So I want to take time here to share my screen I'm going to pull up the candidates guide in Illinois, the candidates guide if you're interested in running for office. So let me so to get to that, I just simply did a search. And I'm going to pull up the 2026 candidate guide. Oh, it seems like it downloaded or it's downloading. So I'm going to open that. So are you still able to see it? No. Let's stop sharing. And then let me go back to share the screen just a minute. I'm going to share my screen again. Share. Okay. Yep, here we go. Okay, so this guide is updated yearly, and so any candidates wanting to seek office in Illinois, this is the guide that candidates will use to review and look for forms and things of that nature. So I am going to go over here, back over here to the guide. And so what you want to do is perhaps look through the table of contents that's here, and you would look for the office that you would like to run for. Okay, so in our case, it is the Chicago Board of Education, and that is on page 71. So I'm going to go all the way down to 71. Okay, there's a number of ways you can get to 71, but I'm just scrolling down to 71. Okay, and it is right here. Okay, so as you can see, this is Chicago Board of Education board members and president. So they have here the qualifications, the filing periods. Okay, when you have a chance, you can read this for yourself. And then they also have the blue text that's in blue is hyperlinks. So they have petitions and the president's form, the statement of candidacy forms. All of these are forms necessary to run for office. They are required documents. So I am going to leave it here, and because I'm going to pull up this form and talk about it in a minute. The petition form here, we'll talk about it. So I have it up there. I'm going to go back. Okay. So I am going to go to, okay, my next slide here. Okay, the candidate guide, if you're, like I said, if you're interested in running for office in Illinois, one of the first resources you'll likely see is the Illinois State Board of Elections candidate guide. The guide explains filing deadlines, petition requirements, as I said, and provides many other forms needed to run for the office. For many offices, candidates can download the petitions, like I said, using that blue text hyperlink. They can download the forms and then collect signatures and file your paperwork. But Chicago's elected school board is still a new process. In 2024, Chicago held its first school board election. Only 10 board members were elected. The remaining members included the board president, were appointed by the mayor. Candidates ran in the districts. There were no A or B sub districts. This year, that changed. Every board seat now elected. Many districts were divided into sub-districts A and sub-districts B. So that meant that candidates and voters were navigating a different system than they had just 2 years earlier. Okay, so again, when you're running for office, it's not just you're going to get on there and look for the candidate, look for the office you want to run and draw down the petitions and they'll file them. There's a lot of different nuances to this. So, like I said, the elected school board, at first, the first 2 years they were running, and half of the elected school board was elected, and then the other half was appointed. So in my own experience, when so now when I talk about, go back and talk about the petition process. So in my own experience, when I downloaded the petition, so I'm going to go back to that and pull that up here. Just a minute. So let me go back and, okay, add this. Okay, so this is the elected school board petition that's on, as you know, you went through the process with me as I searched for the Illinois candidate guide and then searched for Chicago elected school board. And then this was the hyperlink when I pulled up the petition. So petitions is where you collect your signatures. So as you can see, this says, we the undersigned being 500, but no more than 1,500. So you need between 500 to 1,500 signatures of voters residing within district. There's 10 districts, and it doesn't specify sub-district A or B. It just says within district. So I put 9 there and left off the B because it didn't. Let me continue to read on here. By petition that Mark Barnett, who resides at, my address will go there, or a candidate's address will go there, in the city of Chicago, shall be a candidate for the office of member of Chicago Board of Education to be voted for at the election to be held on November 3rd. You put that date in there. Okay, and then as you can see, there are spaces and lines for members of the community, voters, to fill out. They will put their signature here, their name, printed name there is optional, their street address. Okay, and then I will fill the rest of this out, and it has to be notarized. But here you do not see where it says you have to provide within a sub-district. It just says district. Okay, so let me go back. So one of the challenges that I had was I completed them using the language, like I said, printed on the forms. The petition identified the office by district number. The form itself did not state, again, that the candidates were required to add A or B. We just walked through it, you saw it. Later, my petitions, like I said, was challenged because they did not include, because I did not include the designation of sub-district A or B. Another candidate also received an objection involving unspecified sub-districts. So as a result of that, they did use a reference of a case law when I went to the hearing, and said that because of the case law that set the statute that a candidate that did not have the entire office that they were running for was kind of misleading the voters, and the voters would not have known if I was in sub-district A or B. But as I said before, 2 years ago, it was just you're running in that district, the 1 through 10 district. There was no sub-district. So it was confusing on my part as a candidate. It was confusing as voters as well. So I'm not going to revisit the merits of that case. I'm not going to continue to visit the merits of it, but instead I'm using my experience to help explain how election procedures work and why technical filing requirements can become part of determining who ultimately appears on the ballot. All right. So next comes the petition signatures. This is often one of the most difficult parts of running for office. Candidates must speak with voters, collect signatures, and ensure information provided matches the voter registration records. So again, in Illinois, this can be a daunting process. Let me stop sharing my screen now. Okay. And let me go here. So again, every board seat, for this one was up. So even though they selected half and half the last time, every seat was up. And many districts were divided, like I said, into these sub-districts A and sub-districts B. So out of the 10 districts, they were divided into A and B. That meant candidates and voters were navigating a different system than they had did 2 years earlier. So my experience when I downloaded those forms, I completed them and using the language that they said, and I didn't put that B on there. So it was, rejected. So, and that's how any candidate can challenge, any community member can challenge that lives in a district that's a registered voter can challenge the petition process. So I went to the hearing, and just this past week, I was not, they made a final decision to remove me from the ballot. So in any way, I'm using this as a teachable moment as well. So when we're talking about signatures, like I said, it's often that's the most difficult process in running for office, is gathering those signatures and ensure that information provided matches the voter registration records. Now, how would you know that if you're standing outside in, cold weather, rain, sleet, snow, trying to get signatures or whatever, or even on a nice day? Illinois generally requires handwritten petition signatures for candidates filling out the petitions. That means candidates often cannot immediately verify whether every signer is registered at that address they provide. Collecting signatures is also affected by practical realities. People move, young adults may not yet be registered to vote. If you live here in Chicago, I have not seen much of that. I have not seen much of voter registrars out signing up younger people to vote. I remember, years back, They used to be in grocery stores, libraries, community events, and I'm not really seeing a lot of that these days. Hardly any. Okay, so neighborhood, it is important to get out and sign up new people to vote, to vote, because like I said, people move. You have younger people now able to vote that were not able to vote, didn't meet the age requirement in previous years. Okay, so those realities make the process more challenging for candidates. So then after you get the signatures, then here comes the objection process. Okay, this is where any registered voter within the applicable district or sub-district may file an objection under Illinois' election law. The candidate is then notified and must respond through the election board process. Many objectors are represented by attorneys. Candidates must then decide whether to represent themselves or hire legal counsel. Okay, so again, anyone from that community, anyone that's a registered voter for any reason can say, I want to challenge this candidate, whether it's for their petitions, their signatures, or they are looking and they said, oh, this person lives outside of the district, so I want to challenge this person, or any minute thing, technical, like I said, thing that they see that may be wrong with your ballots, your petitions, or your package, or whatever it is. Anyone can, that's a registered voter, can challenge you. So the problem with that too is that as a candidate, you don't know, you might not never meet a person that's challenging you, because most likely they are always going to, the lawyer is always going to appear at any hearing for them. That may be problematic for some, because some of you may feel that, well, someone challenged me, I should have a right to see who challenged me and talk to them and find out why. But this is all a legal process. So for unpaid positions like the Chicago Board of Education, that can require significant time and financial resources. Okay, so the person that's challenging you has to provide a lawyer, which they have to pay a lawyer, or someone has told them to challenge you and going to pay for their legal fees, possibly. Okay, allegedly. Okay, and then you as the candidate that's went out and did all of this work, got signatures, you're going to be challenged and have to possibly come up with a lawyer to defend yourself for your petitions and for your candidacy. The objection process exists as part of Illinois' election law, but it can also become a demanding process for community members seeking public office. Chalkbeat has reported that surviving petition challenges can require attorneys, take weeks, and raise broader questions about ballot access, especially for less resourced candidates. So again, if, for instance, I'm going to use myself as a candidate, I work, a full-time job. So when I get off from work, I had to go collect signatures and then, again, turn those signatures in. And then because I represented myself as a pro se litigant, I didn't go pay for a lawyer because that would have been expensive. Because the last time I was running for office, it cost money to get a lawyer. I ran for state representative, and then I didn't have the experience I do now, and I had to pay for a lawyer only to lose. I was also working full time, so a lot of this is strenuous on a candidate running for office. The the process of running for office. Okay, so why does all of this matter in this election? So this election includes 21 seats and 51 candidates kind of ran, including myself, for the elected school board. In many races, there are only two. In this instance, that means just about two or maybe three candidates. A little, some candidates may have had three candidates that were running, that started off running. When candidates are removed, however, from the ballot through the objection process, voters may have fewer choices. Some people believe ballot access rules are important because they help ensure candidates comply with election law. Others believe technical requirements should not unnecessarily reduce voter choice. So again, I thought that if you have 21, 51 was not overwhelming for the community because, like I said, they gave voters a choice, either two or some had three candidates. So with two or three candidates, you can get to know the candidate and then you can make a more knowledgeable choice on who you want to vote for. But when candidates are knocked off the ballot for these technical reasons, that does not leave the voters with a lot of choices. So really more times than not, there's only one candidate on there. And so if there's only one candidate on there, that is no choice. That this is who is going to be elected and this is who you're going to choose to vote for or not even check that candidate. But they're going to be voted into office anyway because they is just one person. They're not being challenged anymore by anybody. So is that really a fair process? We really have to think about that. Okay, those are policy questions worth discussing as we continue to move forward. One part of the election process that received a lot less attention was district maps. So let's pull up the district maps here. Okay, so let's look at these two maps. Okay, if you've never run for office, you may not realize that how important these maps are. The maps determine where you can run, who can sign your petitions, and ultimately who can vote for you. So let's take a look. Let's take a step back a minute. Like I said, when Chicago held its first elected school board election in 2024, the city was divided into 10 election districts. And excuse me, as you can see here, they on my left side, the colored, the multicolored map on the left, as you can see, there are 10 districts here. It's divided into 10 districts. Now, you may want to pull this up yourself and look a little closely at this. A lot of candidates complained how choppy it looked. Gerrymandering possibly going on there, allegedly. Some gerrymandering, but it's a little bit choppy there in some of these districts. Okay. If you look over to the all blue, the non-colored, but all the solid color, light blue, these are your, so the first map was used in 2024, okay, with the half and half appointed by the mayor and the other half elected. So in my case, when I pulled down that petition, actually the petition went with this one, with this map, because it had the 10, it didn't specify a sub-district A or B. But again, they used case law, to justify them for saying that I should have had A or B on there. a sub-district on there, which in my case, it was B. So when you look at the other map that has the sub-districts on there, yep, it's just a little confusing. I mean, I know we can dig down into this and pull it up and blow it up and things like that or whatever it is. But again, you can take your time and look just how choppy, these districts are. And these maps, the blue one, the one on the right, that's been used, it's not easy to find. Most of them most of the maps are interactive. So as a candidate, you can go down to the Chicago Board of Elections and they have maps. But again, this should be easily available on a website where candidates can easily access these maps and not just go, scavenger hunting for them. Okay. Like I said, the last election, they were appointed, and then this election, you have all of the members being elected. Okay, so there was some confusion about that because the maps have changed. And if you had ran in 2024 and you would thought that they were using the same maps, but as you can see, they're different. So if you were running in 10 and you were just running, or 9, or any of the other districts, you might have been out of compliance according to this new map. Okay, you might have been getting signatures in one of the other sub districts. So see how confusing it could be. Okay. So, like I said, those conversations became part of public discussion surrounding the transition to an elected school board about the district maps. Okay, let's fast forward to this Chicago election. Like I said, they have a fully moved to electing a fully elected school board. So again, that meant new maps. Now, some of the candidates and some of the discussion was, well, when were these new maps introduced? Maps in the Illinois have to be voted on by legislation. So a lot of candidates are raising that question, when were these maps actually voted upon? Okay, so they go through that legislative process before the election. And I'm not saying that they didn't do that, but a lot of candidates, some of the candidates are asking a lot of questions around that. For candidates that change mattered a lot. So they could have very well been knocked off the ballot due to if they were collecting signatures in the wrong sub-district. Okay, just because I'm in District 9, I had to collect signatures, not in the entire District 9, but in District 9B. Had I would have collected signatures in 9A, I would have been out of compliance. Okay. So as we continue on about the this process, yeah, these maps are difficult and to locate, and that transition from districts to sub-districts was not explained as clearly as it could have been in the candidates' materials. Again, that's different from saying that maps were incorrect. The question raised by some candidates was whether the information provided made it easy enough for first-time candidates to understand the new requirements. Okay. As Chicago continues to transitioning from a fully elected school board, experiences like these may help lawmakers and election officials evaluate whether further future candidate materials can be made even clearer. Okay, So now that we have discussed the process and running for office, now I'd like to hear from you. Should election maps be easier to locate and understand before candidates begin collecting signatures? Would interactive online maps help candidates and voters better understand districts and sub-district boundaries? And more broadly, how can we make the election process easier to understand while still maintaining the integrity of our elections? So share your thoughts in the comments below, because this is just my voice. Like I said, it's not just my voice, it's your voice, it's our voice. So again, thank you for joining me for this special edition of Chicago Education Watch. Whether you support a candidate or still undecided or simply want to better understand how the process works, I hope today's message and episode help explain what happens long before Election Day. If you find this episode helpful, please like and subscribe and share it with someone who wants to better understand Chicago's elected school board process. And remember, this isn't just my voice. Again, it's your voice. This is our voice. So don't just watch the conversation, join in the conversation. So I'm Dr. Marlo Barnett, and thank you for watching Chicago Education Watch.
The Chicago Education The Chicago Education